Zheng and O'Connell's group split up at the port. They then moved toward Cairo while discussing plans along the way. Zheng said, just like what we planned yesterday, leaving the newbies out, the 6 of us will be assigned the following responsibilities. G and Zero in a group. Zero will be responsible for sniping, and G protect him. Yinkong and Lan in a group. Yinkong responsible for the assassinations, Lan give her support through acceleration and endurance spells. Me and Tenji together. I will be responsible for close combat. Tenji help me with the incantations that I haven't memorized. Any objections? If not, then this will be how we fight. We will be using the communication devices that we just exchanged. They can also show us the locations of everyone. Immediately Honglu asked, let me see the device. If they can show the locations of our team, what happens if they get into the hands of the other team? Have you considered this? Zheng laughed. Of course. That's why I am going to set a passcode. If someone with the device closes in on us but doesn't know the passcode, then it's an opportunity to set a trap up. We can't let non-team members know this passcode. We will put the 3 of them in a group and we will monitor them in turns. If they do anything that may put our team in danger, kill them at once. Even if it means another 2,000 points. Liang, Heng, and Zuiya shivered as they heard this. Honglu nodded. Then let me stay with them. We don't need a communication device, but when we are not in battle you need to have a group protect us. It's best if no one dies, but if the team is in a desperate situation, you can use the 4 of us as bait. This is what we agreed on in the beginning. Zuiyu immediately yelled, WH, what are you joking? The 6 of them are so strong and have weapons and that communication device. Why do we normal people still have to act as bait? That's just pushing us into hell. Hey. Why are you looking at me like this? I'm just stating the facts. Honglu didn't even glance at her. He sneered and said calmly, because of the lack of power, that's why we are the first ones to die. This isn't the real world, where the weak will get protected. Every action we take is for surviving. If all our major combatants die, our chance of dying is 100%. Team India won't let the living points get away. Understand? Zuiyu was dazed, then her face turned red. But you still should to choose someone with good enough stamina as a bait. I won't be the bait no matter what. You will get penalized by 2,000 points if I die, right? Honglu pulled a string of hair then taunted, ladies first. I think the other 2 are thinking the same thing. If you don't agree, the 4 of us can decide it by votes. Zheng looked at them quietly as he sighed within his heart. This boy's actions were too much like Xian, except he still had a little bit of humanity. Xian was so rational that he ignored everything else. They both liked to place themselves on the side of the majority, thus making what they were doing the right thing. This was probably what smart people like to do. Zheng, Zero, Yinkong, and Ji suddenly looked beyond the crowd. There was a giant, muscular, dark-skinned man and a man with a big beard standing outside the crowd. A very unique feeling attracted their attention. He's definitely from Team India. Very strong sensation of wanting to kill us. Urgent situation. We may get sniped standing here. Not sure if there is anyone else from their team around us. Or we may have been surrounded. Zero, lead everyone away. Lan, give Yinkong and me buffs. Honglu, think of a way to get away from them. Yinkong, keep Big Beard busy. Try to kill him but don't put yourself in danger. I will take on Muscular Man. Zheng made the assignments immediately. Through several movies and guidance from Xian, he had established himself as a leader. Even though he wasn't too qualified, he was developing the qualities of a leader. Muscular Man laughed out loud and said to Big Beard, Joseph, their responses are quick. I wonder how strong they are. Have you chosen your target? A red assault rifle suddenly appeared in his hand. There was also a dagger in the rifle, a dagger that Yinkong threw at it. Don't have to choose, they have chosen for us the usual rules, whoever kills their target first wins. Loser exchanges 1,000 worth of stuff for the other. Seems like I have the advantage. Haha, not so sure. Don't get castrated by accident. Muscular Man laughed then raised his fist and punched the ground, knocking the rocks away. The flying rocks were almost as powerful as bullets, instantly killing about 10 civilians. The rocks also blocked Zheng's vision. Right as he was using the dagger to block these rocks, a black object blocked the sunlight above him. That Muscular Man was holding a boulder several cubic meters large and crushed it down at him. Zheng didn't intend to go all out immediately. He jumped backward as the man swung the boulder to the ground in front of him with a loud bang. It smashed over half a meter deep into the ground. Not only that, but he immediately lifted the boulder up again. Zheng raised his gun then shot at the man's chest. At such close distance, even Zheng himself would not be able to dodge, but the Muscular Man just stood there and took all the shots. The bullets barely penetrated his skin before they were caught in between his muscles. Haha. Come again. Come attack me. You skinny monkey. He laughed then threw the boulder away. The muscles on his body began to expand until he reached almost 3 meters tall. The bullets on his chest were pushed out by his muscle. Then he took out a pair of chain claws, fist weapon, from his pockets. Chinese monkeys, come play. Too bad you are too skinny as a monkey. The man laughed then threw a little rock he was holding. The rock shot by Zheng's side like a bullet. It had enough power but its accuracy was horrible. The two of them were only 7 meters away from each other, but the rock still missed him by at least a meter. Then it crushed the wall of a house behind Zheng, creating a dust cloud. Low accuracy? But its power. Zheng turned around and ran toward the cloud of dust behind him. Muscular Man was lost for a moment, then he charged at Zheng while shouting. He was so powerful that each step he took pressed several centimeters into the ground. Then he had to pull his foot out, making him look like he was stumbling. Although the man's stride looked strange, his speed was incredible. Even with the acceleration buff on Zheng, he was merely faster than the Muscular Man by a bit. The two of them ran into the dust cloud then went straight through the wall on the other side of the house. After Muscular Man's body hit the wall, he felt a sudden pain on his left arm. Almost instantly, he punched left with his right arm, causing a burst of wind that dispersed most of the dust in the air. On the man's left side, Zheng jumped backward, barely scraping by the fist. Zheng held a knife dripping in blood. As soon as Zheng landed, he felt difficulty breathing. Although that punch didn't land on him, the air pressure it caused was effective enough to feel. If it were to land, he would probably be critically injured or straight up dead. As he thought of this, he just felt lucky. Muscular Man wasn't so lucky. His left arm was almost cut off, right down to the bone. Only a fifth of his muscles were still holding onto his arm. His muscles were tougher than steel, even bullets weren't able to penetrate them, but the progressive knife was able to cleave at the molecular level. As long as the object's molecular bond strength wasn't strong enough, the knife could cleave through it. But Muscular Man was tough. He shouted as he grabbed his left arm and pulled it in two. When his muscles pulled apart, it sounded like spring snapping. You could imagine how tough his muscles were. Even more terrifying was that he endured the pain and threw his arm to the ground. Then he struck the wall next to him with his right fist. Zheng was about to run in for an attack, when numerous bricks and rocks flew at him like bullets. He immediately used his knife to block them. He only blocked a few bricks before his right hand felt numb. No, can't tank through it, let's test the power of red flame, blood magic. Once Zheng was decided, he blocked the next few rocks then jumped backwards. At the same time Muscular Man charged at him like a madman. Zheng kept running backwards without stopping until he reached a wall and jumped up. Muscular Man was like a tank. He charged the wall, crushing it and creating a cloud of dust. Then he punched upward, sending the bricks and rocks flying. A red light flashed inside the cloud of dust. Zheng was descending from midair with his knife engulfed in blood-colored flame. Muscular Man immediately rolled to the side. The knife only caught his left arm, taking the remaining part of the arm. The flame also spread to his left shoulder. Yet simultaneously, his fist struck Zheng on the right shoulder, sending him flying through 2 houses before he stopped. It was like Muscular Man went berserk. He began charging again, but a man jumped down from the roof. This was a slender blonde European in his 30s wearing in a doctor's lab coat. His speed was incredible. He appeared next to the Muscular Man in an instant. Muscular Man was losing his sense and struck at the doctor without thinking. The doctor dodged to the side and with a flash of silvery light, he made a thin little cut on Muscular Man's arm. Then the arm just hung there without strength. It wasn't until then that Muscular Man saw who this was. Next he shouted, "Erot. Why did you attack me? Go chase that dude, I already hit him." Erot sneered, "Stop joking. He kicked off your belly the instant you hit him and jumped away. Even though it seemed like you caused a powerful attack, he only took 30% of the damage, and do you want to die?" He moved to the Muscular Man's left side and cut off a large section of his left shoulder, including the bone. The man was going to curse until he saw that the cut off section was burning. The flame consumed the flesh and bone almost instantly, then turned them into ashes before disappearing. That person probably has a vampire enhancement. This ability looks like red flame. Do you still remember the vampire enhancer from Team South Atlantic? Leave him to leader also, our probe mission is over. Muhammad Joseph was captured. When Zheng was fighting the Muscular Man near the port, Muhammad Joseph was fighting Yinkong in the center of the city. The alleys were long and looked identical. Anyone who came here for the first time would get lost easily. Before he knew it, Joseph had lost track of Yinkong. Don't try to run. Allah, he does not forgive deserters. Joseph shouted. He raised an arm and faced it against the wall. The arm bent open and revealed a gun barrel. Then he shot several mini cannons from his arm, blowing the wall into pieces. Yinkong was sneaking behind the wall using a technique from the Assassin's clan to merge into the shadow, hiding her sound and essence. Even people in unlocked mode wouldn't sense her existence that easily. But when Joseph prepared his attack, she suddenly felt a strong sense of danger and jumped toward the exit of the room. Right as she crossed the door, the whole room was drowned in a fire. The impact from the blasts almost sent her flying. She turned around in midair and stepped on the wall in front of her to stabilize. As soon as she got on her feet, she rolled away. Numerous bullet holes appeared where she was standing at, and the bullet holes followed her until she went behind another wall. Haha, stop trying to run. You put yourself in this hopeless situation. You can't even run away in this environment. I can track you through these 3 houses using my homing missiles and laser beam eyes. As long as you are still alive, you can't escape my vision. Don't try to hide. Don't try to run. Come out and fight me face to face. Allah, he will protect brave warriors. Joseph opened up his fingers as he was talking and closed in on the house. Laser beam eyes? Can't escape his vision? Did he mean? From Joseph's point of view, his left eye saw the normal colors of the world, whereas his right eye had an infrared sensor. Yinkong's body emitted the highest amount of heat within this area. Her muscles were burning with every action she took. They were filled with such power as a result of her training all these years. It's no use. You can't run. Joseph laughed out loud. He felt as if he was the hunter chasing a little rabbit. He raised his arm and fired several more cannons, bombing another house into pieces. A shadow jumped out from that house and he immediately fired at it with the bullets from his fingers. For a moment, the shadow was thrown off balance. Joseph was about to laugh again when he saw that Yinkong was running toward him using familiar footwork. She ran up to him while swinging left and right, then slashed at his 2 arms, causing 2 very thin cuts. After Yinkong was done, she stopped in front of Joseph. Joseph paused for a moment, then he shouted angrily, "You're also from the Assassin's clan? All of you are crazy. Cutting someone's tendons with just a simple slash, do you think this is effective against me? Stop dreaming. Allah, his warrior can't be stopped with just this." He raised an arm and punched at Yinkong. Yinkong was prepared for it. She moved backward using the same footwork, then she began running around Joseph in a circle. Gradually it seemed like several Yinkongs are running around him. Joseph looked through his right eye, yet all of them contained the same amount of heat. He immediately fired at them with the finger guns, but the bullets passed right through the figures, as if he was shooting through an illusion. In the real world, they've already created cyborgs. The infrared sensors caused us to lose a lot of our men during the first encounters. After that, we created this running technique to counter it. Running at an extreme yet consistent pace, with every step taking only several centimeters. This allows body heat to remain in the air for a moment after every step even though your body has many mechanical parts. But I want to ask, do you still have a soul? Yingkong pulled out the Hellfire Fang, dagger. It was engulfed with a flame that could burn through souls. The dagger took the shape of the Fang of Cerberus. Joseph's mind went blank for a moment when he saw multiple daggers in the illusions. Meanwhile Yingkong had already moved next to him in an instant and stabbed into the joint between his left shoulder. His left arm was immediately disabled and just hung there without moving. Furthermore, he felt a unique pain coming from his shoulder. The pain was so extreme that he began to yell out loud. That feeling was like his soul was burning. Mechanical parts also have joints, as long as we find the right spot. Yingkong stabbed the dagger into Joseph's other shoulder and said, "Don't move, or die. Don't talk, or die. You better pray that I don't see anyone from your team, or I will assume you contacted them." Joseph's teeth were chattering from the indescribable pain. Yet he couldn't move one bit. The mechanical body that had given him a sense of safety felt like a paper tiger right now. The parts of his body with flesh could somewhat resist these flames, but the flame on the mechanical parts reached straight into his soul. He couldn't even open his mouth to beg for mercy or detonate himself. He watched as Yingkong found his mechanical spine. Then when she stabbed into his spine, he immediately lost consciousness. When the muscular man punched Zheng away with an enormous force, Zheng instinctively kicked off the man's abdomen. He flew away and struck through a house, then the force carried him away almost 100 meters before he stopped. Zheng jumped up as soon as he landed. He felt a sense of pain from the struck shoulder. Every movement was accompanied by excruciating pain, but he clenched his teeth and ran through another house. Next he merged into the street crowd and slowly sped away. After he was some distance away from the scene of battle, Zheng finally got a chance to check his injury. He tore open his shirt. There was a visible fist mark on his shoulder and the joints under the area were dislocated. Fortunately, after the enhancements he had fairly high durability, plus he warded off some of the impact when he was hit. Though this also demonstrated muscular man's power. As long as he hit anyone, that person would most certainly lose the ability to fight. But he seems to lack control over his power. He didn't give off a sense of danger, otherwise I would have gone into the unlock mode automatically. Zheng clenched his teeth and pushed up on his shoulder. Extreme pain radiating from the shoulder. In exchange for that he snapped the dislocated joints back into place. He moved his arm around again. Aside from a bit of pain, there was no more issue. "You just mentioned unlock mode?" A cold voice came from the side. Zheng turned around and saw a man in a lab coat standing under the shadow of a building. Didn't sense him, couldn't even sense his existence. When did he get there? Zheng took a deep breath and pulled out his knife. At the same time he took out his submachine gun with the other hand. Even then he still felt pressure coming from this blonde man. Pressure that was much stronger than muscular man. Although there was some distance between them, he still felt a chilling atmosphere. That was the feeling of death. Blonde man stared at Zheng coldly, then frowned. "Don't worry, I don't intend to fight you right now. I just want to let you know, contact your team and have them release Muhammad Joseph. Then we will not attack each other. Also tell your leader that as long as no one from our team dies, this deal will last until the end of the movie." Then he merged into darkness and disappeared in front of Zheng's eyes. Zheng's palms were sweating. He didn't know why blonde man gave him such a strange pressure. He had to try his best to focus, like blonde man was going to attack him at the next second. It wasn't until this man disappeared that he was able to take a few deep breaths. 0. Did Yingkong catch one of their members? Zheng took out his communication device as he ran. "Yes. He'll tell you the details when you come back." Before Zero finished talking, the little boy Hunglu's childish voice came through. "Zheng. We can't disclose our location right now. You also won't find it from your device. Come to the square in the center of Cairo, then we will tell you where we are." Zheng looked at his device in confusion and adjusted the search distance to the max, which included about a quarter of Cairo. The devices of the rest of the team also appeared in the search, but these devices were each at a different location, forming a circle around the center of Cairo. So that's what's happening. Good strategy. Zheng understood it almost immediately. It was probably Hunglu's plan to put the extra devices around the square and only keep one on themselves. So if someone away from the team got killed or controlled, the enemies would have to search those spots one at a time. Also because the locations were in view of each other, anyone who tried to search the locations was definitely going to die to Zero's sniper rifle. Zheng slowly walked over to the square. He focused his attention on the surroundings and even jumped through some houses and valleys. Fortunately there didn't seem to be anyone following him. Then he sped up and reached the square quickly. As soon as he appeared in the square, his communication device rang. "Zheng, go to the center of the square from where you are, then keep going straight until you are out of the square. Don't do anything else during this time. Yingkong will see if there's anyone following you. Let's go." After listening to these words, Zheng took a deep breath and walked over to the center. He felt someone was watching him from afar. Even though it made him uncomfortable, he did not feel any danger. The device rang again after he walked out of the square. "We are on top of the clock tower south of the square. Come over fast, I want to show you something interesting." Along with Hunglu's voice was the sound of metal being torn apart. A few minutes later, Zheng reached the top of the clock tower. He pushed open the door to the room and saw everyone standing around a table. They didn't even have much reaction when he entered the room. Zero and G turned around to take a look at him, then went back to staring at the table. Zheng was about to complain of the danger he faced, like almost getting crushed by a muscular man. But the other people's reactions triggered his curiosity. He quickly walked over the table, then almost vomited. A bearded Arabian was lying on the table. Hunglu was dissecting his abdomen and taking out rounds of mini cannons and missiles. There was also a flaming dagger on his back. That's basically it. In order to prevent him from detonating himself, we didn't pull out the dagger. Up until now, we have cut off the wires connecting his limbs and taken out the self-detonation device in his chest. Yingkong actually cut off the wires connecting the brain to the rest of the body in the beginning. We are just taking precautions. So we might as well take out all his weapons. Honglu wiped the oil and blood on his hands calmly. His eyes were fixed on the wires inside Joseph's abdomen. Zheng forced a smile. You know that is not what I am talking about. I'm asking why are you dissecting him? You have the skills and knowledge. And don't you feel a little? Honglu laughed. Disgusted? Or cruel? Don't be naive. He's our enemy and I am not doing this for fun or hentai. If he really has a way to self-detonate, we are at risk of getting wiped by just him alone. Do you wish to put all of us in danger? Just for that ideology of yours? Don't kid me. Zhen nodded his head with a bitter smile then said, yes, I just felt a bit disgusted but you are right. If I ever do anything not in line with the team's interest, please remind me. And now? Is he still alive? Of course. I am not dissecting him alive. This is just surgery to take out foreign objects. Honglu laughed. He is no longer human in a sense. He's half robot. His bones, nerves, and some muscles have been swapped for metals and plastic. Almost all his organs have turned into electronic devices. Only a small part is still flesh and muscles. I grew up in a hospital after all, so I've seen dissection several times. As long as we take out his weapons carefully, it shouldn't cause too much harm to the rest of his body. The door was pushed open again. Yingkong walked into the room. She looked at Joseph's abdomen quietly. Have you taken out the self-detonating device yet? Even though I am not sure, but I basically took out all the weapons. Now we just have to wake him up. If he's still alive. Honglu waved his hand at her. Zheng took a breath. He watched as Yingkong walked over to Joseph's head and pulled out the dagger. The moment this flaming dagger separated from behind his head, he immediately opened his eyes and moved his neck a little. Though due to the wires being cut off, the body below his neck was paralyzed. Joseph seemed to realize something. He didn't yell and just looked at them quietly. After a while, he said, why didn't you kill me? You think you can get something out of my mouth? Stop joking with me, Allah, his warrior won't. Before he finished his sentence, Yingkong had stabbed his arm with the dagger. When the flame began burning his arm, he screamed in pain. His neck was twitching non-stop. It wasn't until she pulled out the dagger that he calmed down. His face was pale white afterwards. Yingkong sneered at him. You know the Assassin's Clan, so you probably know that the word mercy is not in our dictionary. Tell us what we want to know or I will make you suffer the whole day and night before killing you. Joseph stared at Yingkong. His eyes were filled with hatred. Then he said viciously, you won't dare to do anything to me. Your leader probably received a message from our team. Your team is not weak. If we fight each other, it will end in a loss for both teams. Our team will come to a treaty with your leader. Release me and we can keep a peaceful distance from each other until the end of this movie. Everyone looked at Zheng. He smiled bitterly and said, yes, a blonde doctor from his team intercepted me on the way and said if we release this Muhammad Joseph then they will keep a distance from our team until the end of this movie. If we weren't already -1 point, we could probably accept the suggestion. Joseph was pleased with himself but his face turned pale white when he heard the last sentence. Especially when he saw that Yingkong had taken out the dagger again, he couldn't even mutter a word. His lips were shivering violently. Honglu clapped his hands. Just like what you think. We won't let you go. If you want to die without suffering, then tell us everything including every member's roles, abilities, power levels, and items. When we learn this, we will let you die peacefully. Otherwise we will crumble you mentally with pain until we can get any secret out of you. Think over it. Joseph clenched his teeth as he looked at the flaming dagger in fear. The pain of burning of the soul wasn't something to which others could relate. Compared to death, he was more scared of prolonged pain. It was like the worst punishment in hell. I accept. Let me introduce myself. My name is Shivagantan, leader of Team India. Although I don't want to admit it, but my reckless team member got captured by you. I also heard what you just said. You accidentally lost 1 point when disposing of a newbie because this is your first team battle. No problem. We will gift him to you. But we will also erase his memory. This is good for both of us. Then we will keep our peace until the end of this movie. Do you accept my suggestion? When Joseph was about to accept their request, his expression suddenly changed and said these words. His face looked calm, had a faint smile. Of course, since we've given away a veteran, we should be the ones to finish this movie. I don't think you have any objections, right? Zheng's group was shocked. When Zheng recovered, he immediately asked, your mission? Is it eliminating Imhotep? If it is, then I will accept your suggestion on behalf of my team. No, our mission says it will give us the mission after Imhotep leaves Cairo. Before he finished talking, they saw meteors raining down from the sky onto Cairo. When they looked out from the clock tower, Cairo was burning in flames. This was the prelude of Imhotep leaving Cairo. The watch on Joseph flashed. Honglu picked up the watch and read, bring back the Book of the Dead. Revive Aang Sunamun if the Book of the Dead was used by a non-movie character, kill the possessor of Osiris Mark and seize back the right to use the book. Everyone looked strangely awkward after hearing that. Joseph also noticed this. His eyes turned to Zheng like the others. When Zheng was about to come into his view, Yingkong suddenly stabbed the dagger into his head. The flames burst out of his mouth, nose, ears, and eyes. He only got a chance for a short scream before his head was burnt down to the skull. Everyone was shocked. Zuiyu's scream brought everyone's attention back. She yelled with a sharp voice, God! What did you just do? How could you just kill their member? You haven't even given them a reply. God, what if they misunderstand and attack us? Yingkong gave her a cold smile. Don't be naive. Do you think this will end peacefully if we accept their suggestion? No, because we've already used the Book of the Dead. Even if you give them the book, you will not get their mercy. They will definitely attack us right afterwards. Zuiyu continued yelling, But only one of us used the book. Just trade him for someone in the other team. It seemed like they don't want to start a war with us either. If you start a war with them, what happens to us newbies? Just wait here and die. Yinkang looked at her like she's retarded. Zheng said coldly, I'm sorry. The one that you believe should be given up, the one that used the book, is me. Even though I won't abandon my comrades, but when I am faced with the situation, I will kill anyone that threatens me. Zuiyu immediately turned around and saw Zheng holding a knife with an ice-cold expression. She could feel his killing intent through his eyes. As if he would attack the moment she moves. Her whole body froze there until Zheng moved his eyes away from her, then she breathed heavily. Honglu pulled a hair and said to Zuiyu in a sarcastic tone, of course. We can't abandon you. In fact, we are in the same boat. Why do you think they want to make peace with us? Is it because of mercy? Stop joking. The only reason is because they're also afraid of our power. Aside from being the leader of our team, you are also our crucial combatant. If you die, will Team India still want to continue with the peace? That's not possible. Why would they when it's a bunch of free points? Zuiyu's face turned red but she couldn't utter a word. Liang patted her shoulders and smiled. Then can we pretend to accept their terms and go get the Book of Amunare from the tomb in the meantime? There shouldn't be any danger in the tomb right now. The mummy is in Cairo, and we also know Evelyn who knows the location of the book. Isn't this a great chance to finish the mission as soon as possible? We are at 0 points, so it doesn't matter if we finish the movie immediately. Zuiyu looked at him thankfully, but before she could say anything, Lan shook her head and said, that's not possible. The Book of the Dead is a critical item in reviving Aang Sunamun. Not only does Imhotep wants to get it, Team India also needs it to finish their mission. Furthermore, once they learn that the Book of the Dead isn't in the movie characters' hands, they will think of us in the movie. Imhotep moves as fast as an airplane after he recovered his powers and can summon sandstorms. His powers aren't something we can rival. Even if we get our hands on the Book of Amunare, we will have to fight Team India. Zheng took a deep breath and organized this information. Then our goal is clear. Since we're not at a negative score anymore, we should focus on obtaining the Book of Amunare as soon as possible and avoid fighting Team India. Ho. Looks like we are going on an adventure with O'Connell and the other two characters again. They are the only ones that can find the book easily. We don't have the skills to navigate through the traps and maze of the tomb. Honglu pulled several hairs. As he played with them he said, then we have to hurry. People who watched the movie should know that the Book of the Dead is on the hands of the Americans right now. And the main characters will be the ones that can find the Book of Amunare. If I want to resurrect Aang Sunamun, then I will definitely do one thing aside from seizing the Book of the Dead. I will kill the main characters to prevent the Book of Amunare from being discovered. In other words, Team India is probably on the way to the museum. If they kill the main characters before we get there and find that the Book of the Dead isn't on the Americans, then we will be attacked by both Team India and Imhotep. That would be a checkmate on us. Zheng was shocked. He could not find a reason to reject Honglu's deduction because that's what he would do if his mission was to resurrect Aang Sunamun. He immediately said, Zero and G, go find a high point around the museum. Me and Tenji, Lan, and Yinkang will enter the museum in pairs. As for the rest of you, Honglu, come with us, let the three of them stay here. Zheng made it clear that he didn't trust the three of them. If they want to die, they could go do what they want. But he wanted to protect Honglu. Honglu shook his head with a smile. No need. Give me and Hong each a gun, the four of us stay here. If you fail to save the characters, then we will just suicide. We can't give them free points, right? Of course it would be best if you can live. I want to see what you can exchange for in God's dimension. Zheng took a long look at Honglu, and pulled out 2 guns plus some magazines from his ring. Then said to everyone, then let's go. Go save our hope. The distance from the clock tower to the museum wasn't that far off. But just to make sure, they each took a communication device then headed off to the museum. At the same time, O'Connell's group had just left the inn. Even though they'd made a deal with Zheng to steal the mummies, before leaving for the museum they went back to the inn to put down their luggage and have lunch. Do you believe it? That wine tasted like blood. No, it turned into blood. I've never had red brandy before that, O'Connell complained. Evelyn said, all the rivers in Egypt turned red and all the water turned into blood. This is one of the curses from the resurrection of the mummy. Did you see the meteors? He has come to Cairo. O'Connell said, I don't care about anything else. Once we steal those mummies, we will find a ship to leave Egypt. I don't want anything to do with mummies. Leave the monsters to the professionals. Zheng's group is much stronger than us. Evelyn stepped in front of O'Connell and yelled, are you saying we should abandon our responsibilities? So we could run away? We are the ones that released that monster. Even if Zheng's group is helping, we can't just run away ourselves. Wait. O'Connell glared at her and shouted in reply. It was you who released that monster, not us. Don't drag us into the responsibility. We don't have the obligation to save the world. Plus that monster is impossible to kill. You want us to fight those bones with our mortal bodies? Evelyn immediately replied, that's why we need to find a special weapon. If memory serves me right, the other book, the Book of Amunare, is the weapon to kill the mummy. Don't they already have the Book of the Dead? Let them delay the monster with that power and we will go find the Book of Amunare. We will definitely be able to kill it. O'Connell scratched his head as if he had a headache. Wait, what does that have to do with me? Why should I do this? I am thankful that you saved me from the jail. That was why I went to the city of the dead with you and brought you back safely. That was what I promised you and I accomplished it. Why do I still have to help you with your responsibility? Who was the one that read the words in the Book of the Dead? Evelyn was shocked and muttered, it's me, but am I only a promise to you? O'Connell pushed her away lightly and walked toward the museum. You either choose to stay here and save the world, or come with me and leave this place. It's your choice. Evelyn followed behind him. She clenched her teeth and said, I choose to stay. O'Connell looked at her in surprise then uttered the words, fine. Whatever you want. Of course it's whatever I want. I don't need you to care. Whatever. Jonathan shook his head. They seemed like two children in his eyes. Even though they cared about each other, yet they were acting like this. It wasn't long before they reached the museum. To their surprise, they saw the two Americans approaching them with pale white faces. Jumping over to O'Connell, they said hurriedly, "God, we saw him, that monster. You won't believe it, he found the bodies from the desert and sucked them dry. Those dried bodies are still in the inn. Fortunately a cat passed by and scared it away. Or else we would have become mummies also." It wasn't until the two of them calmed down and repeated the words that O'Connell, Evelyn, and Jonathan understood what they'd seen. After the Americans received the gold bars, they came back to Cairo and found a ship. Although they were willing to pay generously, the ship wouldn't leave until the next day. So they went back to the inn. Once they entered their room, they saw a half-rotted mummy carrying two dried bodies. The Americans' minds went blank and fired at the mummy. Yet, the normal bullets were ineffective against the mummy. As the mummy was walking over to them and they were about to be sucked dry also, a cat walked by scaring the mummy away and saving their lives. "Yes," Evelyn said with excitement. "In Egyptian mythology, cats are the guardians at the gates of the underworld. Mummies belong to the dead, so cats are their nemesis. Do you remember that Jean carried a cat along the whole time? So that's why. They knew we were going to encounter mummies. Can't we also carry a cat with us? Right, cats are the guardians of the underworld. Before he completely comes back to life, cats can suppress him. But that's only before he completely resurrects. Once he resurrects we won't be able to do anything." The five of them entered the museum from the main entrance. As they were discussing the mummy, a cold voice interrupted them. They raised their heads and saw the curator standing alongside a man in black. That man was the one that had attacked them several times. Evelyn immediately hid behind O'Connell. Jonathan also wanted to hide, but O'Connell grabbed him. He and the Americans pulled out their guns and pointed them at the man in black. The old curator shrugged. "Do you want to shoot or know why he's here? Take a seat. I will tell you what's happening." They looked at each other and finally sat down. Humans would die from gunshots after all, unlike the mummy. So they would rather sit face to face with their enemy than the mummy. That's the situation. We belong to a secret organization that guards the city of the dead, and it's secret. It has been like this for over 3,000 years. We killed anyone and any organization that attempted to lay their hands on the city. We vowed to protect everything, using whatever means necessary. We wanted to prevent Imhotep from returning to the human world at any cost. The curator said loudly. The man in black frowned. "Yet we failed our mission because of you." O'Connell and the other two looked awkward. Evelyn said in an appalled tone, "And you think this justifies killing innocent people? For the organization and to stop that creature?" Let me think. The curator met eyes with the man, then they said simultaneously, "Yes." O'Connell's group were at a loss for words. After quite a while, O'Connell muttered, "But why is he chasing us? Just because we entered the pyramid? Didn't he betray the pharaoh? Why is he still guarding the tomb?" The man said, "He didn't betray the pharaoh. He betrayed his responsibility as a high priest after he resurrected as a monster. He doesn't kill people that entered the tomb but rather people that opened the chest. He will regain some power for every person he kills. Furthermore, he needs to recover the canopic jars to revive Ankh-Sunamun. That is the reason he is chasing you. Of course, the Book of the Dead is also something he needs." The Americans turned pale. O'Connell said, "The Book of the Dead? Zheng took it away. Also Zheng could summon a sandstorm using the book. Didn't you know of its power after guarding the tomb for so long?" The curator and man yelled, "Impossible." Then they looked at each other in shock because O'Connell didn't seem to be lying, and the book isn't on them. The curator stood up and said excitedly, "If this is true, maybe we can kill that monster, someone that can use the Book of the Dead." There were high priests that could use the book's power in historical records. After they used the book, the symbol of Osiris would appear on their hands. No one else can use the book until they die, even the incantation that can revive the dead without using any power. So as long as that Zheng doesn't die, Imhotep will not be able to use the book. The man in black was also excited. Not only this, they can also use the book's power to fight that monster and give us the time to find a method to kill it. O'Connell asked, "Do you have a way of killing it?" "Kill it? Of course not." O'Connell scratched his head. The situation turned awkward until Evelyn asked, "Isn't there two books? The Book of the Dead and the Book of Amun-Re. If the Book of the Dead resurrects this monster, wouldn't the Book of Amun-Re be able to kill it? Even though we are the guards of the tomb, we don't have access to these two books. In fact, we aren't even allowed to enter the tomb. As the descendants of the guards of the pharaoh, the city of the dead is a holy ground, a place where the dead rest in peace. We would not disturb their peace." Evelyn said. I know. But aren't we protecting the world right now? No one wishes that monster to resurrect completely. Isn't it also your responsibility to obtain the Book of Amun-Re and kill him?" Evelyn suddenly recalled something. "Right, did you mention Ankh-Sunamun? That monster called me by this name in the tomb." The man and curator were surprised. According to historical records, that woman was the cause of Imhotep suffering the Hamdi curse. He probably thought of you as the reincarnation of Ankh-Sunamun. If he wants to resurrect Ankh-Sunamun, he needs the Book of the Dead and a human sacrifice. This human sacrifice. It's probably me. Evelyn climbed the stairs to the second floor as he replied. She stood next to a stone tablet with hieroglyphs. According to archaeological researches, the Book of Amun-Re was hidden inside the statue of Osiris. But we found the Book of the Dead inside the statue instead. So the archaeologists were wrong. They mixed up the locations of the two books. If I am not mistaken, the Book of Amun-Re must be inside the statue of Ra. Yes. The Book of Amun-Re is inside the statue of Ra, but you won't be able to see that book. A voice came from above. Everyone quickly looked over and saw a dark, skinny man holding an unusual curved blade standing on by the second floor window. He jumped down while laughing arrogantly, swinging the blade at Evelyn's head. "Pa. The skinny man was hit by a series of gunshots while midair, sending him back almost 10 meters, and knocking down several bookshelves. At the same time, Zheng and his group broke in from a window. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and come down." Zheng rushed into the museum and shouted. At the same time, a wall on the second floor shook, cracks appeared, and began to expand. Evelyn screamed as she saw it. Fortunately, she was smart enough to run down the stairs immediately. O'Connell and the other characters pulled out their guns, but before they had the chance to do anything, the wall on second floor exploded. A giant man of 3 meters tall came in from the hole. He saw Zheng and immediately shouted, "You weakling that only knows how to run. Come and fight me again." He jumped down from second floor before he even finished talking. Zheng was a bit surprised when he saw muscular man. His arm had completely healed. Aside from color of the skin appearing whiter, the arm was as muscular as before. The man jumped in between Evelyn and everyone else. His feet stomped into the concrete floor, causing 2 dented footprints. You could tell his weight and power from that jump. Muscular man didn't even take a look at Evelyn. He grabbed a bookshelf and threw it over at Zheng. Although the throw was powerful enough, its accuracy was inversely proportional. The shelf went over everyone's heads and hit the glass display shelves behind. The curator moaned and was about to yell when O'Connell, the 2 Americans, and the man in black all opened fire on muscular man. Yet their bullets couldn't even penetrate his skin. "Shit. Zheng, where did you lure this monster from? Is he the mummy's subordinate?" O'Connell shouted as he kept firing. Zheng shouted in reply, "In some sense, yes, he's on the side of the mummy. Anyway, you guys hurry up and leave. This isn't a battle that you can join. Tenji. Take them out of the museum." Evelyn yelled, "O'Connell. If you dare leave me behind, I won't forgive you even if I become a mummy." O'Connell shrugged as he smiled bitterly. He pulled out another gun and shouted, "Shit, why did I ever meet a woman like you? Hurry up and come over to the side." Zheng saw muscular man turn towards Evelyn. He had no choice but to take out his knife and jump at the man. He slashed at the man's legs before Evelyn was attacked. Muscular man immediately countered by jumped away. He was already several meters off the ground when the knife reached him. At the same time he punched downward. The immense pressure from the punch forced Zheng to block it with his knife. With a loud bang, the ground around them collapsed. The 2 of them fell into the room below. Everyone was shocked. O'Connell asked, "There's a basement?" The curator nodded. "Yes, there's a room below for storing documents, broken tablets, and broken mummies. Are you sure they are human?" O'Connell looked at the second floor and said, "I don't know if they are human or not, but if don't run right now I don't think we will be human for much longer." The skinny man that got shot away was standing on the stairs on second floor. There was no trace of gunshots on him, as if bullets were useless against him. His curved blades were very strange, they were surrounded by a cold fog. The man jumped down without a word and turned to Evelyn. Right at that moment, 2 girls entered the museum from where Zheng entered. The short-haired girl's hand flashed, a silver throwing knife flew at the man's neck, forcing him to pull his blade back to block the knife. The impact knocked him over a meter back. When he landed on the ground, Evelyn had already run into O'Connell's arms. The 2 girls that entered were Yinkong and Lan. Lan frowned as she looked at the big hole on the ground. "You guys leave first. We will talk later, Wind Spirit." Yinkong was already running to the skinny man while holding her dagger. Lan immediately cast the acceleration buff on her. Her incredible speed became even faster. The dagger came in contact the curved blade in almost an instant. As blood dripped from the man's left arm, one of his blades also fell to the ground. You're also from the Assassin's Clan." His face suddenly changed. He didn't even try to pick up the blade and instead backed off as fast as he could. Yinkong's eyes looked bloodthirsty. She moved toward the man casually step by step, but her speed was much faster than his. As she was about to enter attack range, she immediately flipped backward. Several throwing knives appeared at where she was standing. No, not throwing knives but rather scalpels. A figure in white came out from the second floor. A doctor-like blonde European stood in front of the skinny man. Next to the window on the second floor, a monk plus several men and women were standing there. The monk looked down at everyone on the first floor teasingly, just like how a cat looks at the mouse trying to run away, bloodthirsty, cruel. "Unfortunately it seems you've ignored our suggestion for peace, or perhaps you believe you can win against our team. Even if you lost a team member in the beginning." The monk walked in slowly. Walking beside the monk were 2 women and a man. Including the blonde doctor, the muscular man, and the cyborg, Team India had at least 8 members. Yinkong did not take her eyes off the blonde man to look at the newcomers. The 2 of them were moving in similar manners, silent footsteps, holding onto weapons with both hands, eyes fixed onto each other. As soon as the other person lets his or her guard down, they would strike without hesitation like a snake. "You are the one who caught Muhammad Joseph? Then you must be holding onto a magical weapon. It would take me quite a bit of effort if I had to catch him alive. Young assassin, snow white skin, red and soft blood vessels. Cut open your stomach and hold onto those organs, then crush them, haha." He got more and more excited as he talked. In the end he started laughing like a lunatic. He moved toward Yinkong like a shadow. Yinkong immediately raised her dagger in front of her. With a clank, she felt a huge force coming through her hand. The blonde man was holding 2 crystal-like scalpels. Yinkong could only see a glimpse of light from the reflection before the pain on her right hand registered. 1/5 of her thumb was cut off. Luckily she backed off instantly and dodged the follow-up attack. Even so, her right hand was already dripping blood. "Wolf Dr. Erot, aren't you already dead? The European assassin clans couldn't have let you get away. Why are you still alive?" Yinkong didn't even look at her thumb. Her eyes went out of focus. She entered the unlock mode as she was talking. Although her life was not at risk yet, the pressure exerting from Erot was too much, as if he would cut her apart in the next moment. Erot's mental state was getting more crazy. He licked the blood on the scalpel, and with a light pull of the hand, he cut off the tip of his tongue. He yelled, "Virgin blood. Skin, vessels, muscles, organs, brain cut open all of them. Ha 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 ha. A woman next to the monk who had her eyes closed the whole time saw his craziness and frowned. Leader, he's going feral again. I can't suppress it anymore if he continues, he will kill everything in his view. The monk looked at the first floor quietly and said, then let him go feral. We can see how much power Team China has. If he can kill every one of them here, then we will start the hunt and wipe out their team. Erot kept yelling, his body was convulsing orgasmically. Yingkong tried to run up for an attack several times, but as soon as she moved her feet, his eyes would become fixed on her, forcing her to stop in place. Erot's body gradually enlarged, shredding his clothes. His body hair was growing longer until he transformed into a werewolf. He didn't have nails, he had crystal scalpels instead. The werewolf raised his head to the sky and howled. Suddenly blood splashed from his neck, a silver throwing knife stabbed into his neck. Unfortunately its power was barely enough to penetrate his skin and didn't even reach into his muscle. Erot pulled out the knife then closed his hand, crushing the knife into a coin-like shape. Then he jumped at Yingkong. Run. Yingkong only had the chance to yell the single word before she was sent flying into the shelves. Paper and bits of wood floated in the air. For a while, the other people could only hear the clanking sounds of metals crashing into each other, and the occasional moan from Yingkong. Lan quickly took out a smoke grenade. She exchanged it before entering the movie and never thought it would come into use. As she was about to pull the ring, Tenji placed his gun on her head. Lan yelled with shock and anger. Chi Tenji. You crazy? Do you think they will let you live if you kill me? Impossible. They will just kill you, Tenji. Tenji's eyes were filled with pain. His whole body was shivering, but that gun was fixed on Lan's head. The woman with closed eyes said, the girl from the Assassin's clan had undergone mental training, I cannot control her. This woman seemed to have enhanced her mental capacity, it's not easy to control her either. So I can only control the one next to her. The monk laughed lightly. No, you did a good job, Shinea. Kill the 4 of them here. The one in the basement should have become ground meat by now. Minima's close combat strength is only second to Erot. Team China is only so much, we can. Before he finished talking, they heard a huge impact and shout from the basement. Several seconds later, 2 people jumped out from the floor. Zheng's face was full of blood, his muscles were all puffed up, and his hand was grabbing onto the giant's neck. The 2 of them kept fighting on the ground until they heard the sound of bones snapped. Minima's body lost all strength. Zheng's eyes were bloody red. He was biting onto the giant's shoulder, while his other hand was holding a knife next to the giant's neck. I know you have a doctor in your team. You swapped him an arm even after I cut his off. I've only snapped his neck, he's still alive, but can't last much longer. Let go of Tenji, let them leave the museum or we will trade losses. The skinny man with curved blade began moving toward Zheng, but the monk quickly said, stop, Charcoal. Minima is still alive. Charcoal hesitated then stopped. The monk walked off the second floor as if he could stand on air. To everyone's surprise, he slowly walked down to the first floor. Zheng had entered the second stage of the unlock mode by now. When they were in the basement, due to the lack of light, he didn't receive much damage. The giant's strikes were extremely powerful, especially the hand with the claw, which could crush the wall into powder with a punch. But aside from power, his senses, vision, and control over his power were weak. While inside the basement, only a few of his punches scratched Zheng, most of them missed. Though these few punches still knocked Zheng to the wall. When one side's power was vastly overwhelming, all techniques could become useless. Zheng didn't get too close to the Minima afterwards. He attacked with his knife from the sides. After a few slashes, the giant's body was painted with cuts. Several of his tendons were cut off. If it wasn't for fear of that extreme strength, Zheng would have probably gotten the knife into his heart. Minima wasn't an idiot. After several cuts he knew he would die if he continued like this. Unable to hit his target while receiving cuts little by little. That gloomy realization made him shout with insanity. He ignored everything and charged at Zheng, letting the knife stab into his stomach and cut his intestines in half. But at the same time he also got a hold of Zheng and enclosed Zheng's body in his arms. Keep running. Chinese monkey. Run. You think you are really a monkey? Let me make you into ground meat. Weakling that only knows how to run. He yelled then tightened his arms. He could hear the sound of Zheng's bones fracturing. Ah! Zheng also began screaming like mad. The near-death sensation fell upon him. This was the first time he'd really experienced this sensation since he entered this movie. The power coming from Minima's arms was so strong that even activating his chi wasn't helping. If he let this continue, in less than 10 seconds he'd be crushed. I can't die. After going through so many dangers, how I can die here? Zheng opened his mouth and bit the giant's shoulder. The taste of blood rushed down his throat. He felt a violent and bloodthirsty emotion surface from within. At this crucial moment, his genetic constraint finally unlocked again and entered the second stage. His muscles began convulsing, 2 seconds later his muscles swelled up. This was the symbol of the second stage, the ability to control his body at will and unleashing all its potential. Go to hell. Monkey. Minima was still yelling, but before he could finish, a huge force emerged from within his arms and knocked him away to the wall. You are the F***ing monkey. Zheng's eyes became bloody red. For some reason, he wanted to drink blood. As soon as he knocked Minima away, he jumped at the giant. The two huge powers crashed into each other. Endless combat instincts streamed into Zheng's head from the unlock mode. When his hands clashed with the giant's, he kicked off the ground, jumping over to Minima's back, which twisted the giant's arms, then... Pop! Minima's arm snapped. Minima let out a scream and Zheng knocked him to the ground and snapped both his legs too. It still wasn't over, Zheng grabbed onto him and jumped up to the first floor until he finally took full control over Minima's life. The monk was standing about 10 meters away. He looked at Zheng and said, the second stage of the unlock mode? Then you are the leader of Team China? Shinea let that Tenji say out their quest. Tenji's body trembled and his voice was forced through his lips, "Eliminate Imhotep." The monk touched his forehead with a finger then said, "Eliminate Imhotep." "Good, I thought your quest was to kill Anksunamun. Then the Book of the Dead is still in your hands. And you've used the book. That's the reason you refused our suggestion and risked your lives to save the characters. Because you probably won't be able to find the Book of Amunare without them. Too bad that you learned of the secrets of these two books, otherwise we could have remained in peace. But since you know them." Zheng was surprised. He asked without thinking, "The secrets of the two books? What secrets?" "God will put some items inside the movies. These items cannot be exchanged from God, like the spells from the two books cannot be learned from God. Especially the Book of Amunare. Even though every person only has one chance, but having it remember, this is the unspoken rule when two teams meet. If both teams are on the same level, then we will exchange information, such as how to survive a specific movie or how to run away when the plot changes. We met a team that experienced this movie, so we also know of the secrets of these two books, but if the powers of two teams are unequal, Shinea." The monk shouted then opened his arms. A giant serpent about a meter in diameter and 10 meters long appeared behind him. This serpent had two heads with different colors. When the serpent appeared, Tenji fell to the ground as if he had lost all his strength. At the same time, Zheng felt that he lost control of his body. He dropped Minima to the ground. One of the serpent's heads then bit toward him. That huge mouth looked like it was going to swallow him whole. Everything slowed down in that moment. Tenji slowly getting up from the floor. Lan running toward him in panic. Shredded paper and wood floating where they were fighting. And this giant serpent's head coming closer and closer. He could faintly smell the blood coming from its mouth. The only thing left in Zheng's mind was that death was looming in. If the second stage of the unlock mode gives absolute control over the body, does the nervous system count as part of the body? When you unleash the nervous system's potential, then your reaction speed. Zheng's whole body was violently convulsing. Because of the speed it was convulsing, everyone could only make out his figure, but his body and face became blurred. As the serpent was about to bite into him, Shanna yelled, I can't hold him with the psyche chain anymore." As she finished her words, Zheng flashed to the side of the serpent's head, but just barely getting away. He struck the giant head with his ringed fist and channeled his chi into the ring. It was like snow came into contact with fire, a huge hole appeared on the serpent's head instantly. Half of its head was crushed into powder. Then Zheng gave its head a kick and used the force to propel him over to Tenji. "Give me the grenade." His words were meaningless though, since his speed was so much faster than Tenji is. He reached Tenji in the blink of an eye and grabbed the grenade from his hand. He pulled the ring then threw the smoke grenade over at the monk. A thick white smoke began to fill up the museum. "Okay, everyone leave the museum now. Shit, what are you standing here for? Go." Zheng turned to O'Connell and saw that he was standing there like an idiot. After his shout, O'Connell and the other characters came to their senses and hurried toward the exit. "Lan, go with them, don't let them get separated. Tenji, hurry, help me read this spell. I found some good stuff in the basement." Tenji? Zheng took out a few broken remains of some mummies and some sand. Then he took out the Book of the Dead. But Tenji was standing there with no reaction until several seconds later, when he collapsed to the ground. That's when Zheng and Lan noticed the needle pierced into his heart. Zheng's face looked distorted from anger. He held onto Tenji but he couldn't pull the needle out judging from its position and depth. As soon as he pulled the needle out, Tenji would lose his life. "Zheng, give me the book." "Ho ho, my vision is a little blurred." Tenji muttered, but blood slipped through his mouth with every word he said. Zheng held onto him tightly. "Don't worry, you're fine. Zero and Yinkong are skilled at dealing with injuries. You should be fine. F***ck. I told you to bring me the book." Tenji shouted but that only made him vomit more blood. The cloth at his chest was stained by the blood seeping out. Zheng opened the book to the page of the spell. Tenji touched the characters with his fingers and read them out one by one. Zheng could only concentrate on remembering these characters and pronunciations. 10 seconds later, Tenji finished reading. The monk still hadn't came out of the smoke. Maybe they weren't skilled with close combat, though Zheng felt that the monk had gone back up to second floor instead. "I am just a grave robber. Those ancient relics and the culture of our country, a culture more magnificent than any other country. I only wanted to bring this culture back to the world. They lied to me and sold the relics to other countries. I am not a **king traitor." Tenji's voice became smaller and smaller. After his last few words, he lay back down quietly. Blood stopped coming out of his chest and the needle came out by itself then floated into the smoke. "Guardians of Death. Listen to my summons." Zheng put down Tenji's body. He held onto the Book of the Dead then began chanting the spell. As his blood energy drained, the mummy pieces and sand merged together then grew in size. Several seconds later, 4 skeletal mummies with swords and shields appeared in front of him. Zheng waved his hand at the smoke and these mummies jumped in with incredible speed. "Lan, bring Tenji out. Remember not to let the characters get separated." Zheng took a deep breath and held onto his knife. Lan wanted to say something but when she saw Zheng's face, she picked up Tenji's body and ran toward the exit. When her figure vanished from sight, a wolf howl came from the other side. The 3-meter-tall werewolf stood up. His hand was holding onto Yinkong. Her whole body was filled with cuts and a part of her shoulder was bitten off. Her left arm hung there without strength but she was still alive. She looked at Zheng with her feeble and dim eyes. The werewolf howled again and threw Yinkong at Zheng. When Zheng caught her, the werewolf was already sprinting toward him. The scalpels on its claw was about to pierce through Yinkong's body. Zheng had no choice but to turn around and take the scalpels with his back to protect Yinkong. The scalpels penetrated into his body and the impact forced him into the wall. The werewolf pushed Zheng through the wall and out of the museum. With its claw inside Zheng's back, he howled and lifted Zheng up. His other claw was reaching for Zheng's neck. Yet Zheng couldn't do anything at this point. As he saw the monk and the other members of Team India walk out from the smoke, hopelessness began to fill his heart. Bang. A bullet struck the werewolf at extreme speed, penetrated into his right lung through the chest, then knocked him to the wall. Then that huge force crushed the wall. This mighty shot came from the Gauss sniper rifle.